Shalom. Good evening, man. So I want to meditate again on the word, and so that we may, calibrate our minds properly and have the right programming that is according to the will of the Most High, man. So something that I want to meditate right now is about how the Lord can bless us with either wisdom or a reprobate mind, right? Remember that the Most High gives us wisdom, right? And all wisdom cometh from the Lord. That is Sirach 1. And at the same time, the Lord can bless us with an incorruptible mind, right? So we gotta plant the right seeds, right? So that we may bear the right fruits, right? Because the Most High can bless us with a reprobate mind. And that is something that is very important to understand, right? Because once we lose understanding, that's where darkness can come in, right? This is the book of Job 28 and 28. And unto man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, right? And to depart from evil is understanding, right? So what is the opposite of departing from evil, right? Is to be apart from evil, right? Remember, we have to be set apart from the world, right? Because the world teaches us wrong things, but the Lord teaches us the right things, and that is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? So when we depart from evil, we gain understanding, right? But if we practice the wrong fruits or the wrong seeds, we may get blessed by the Most High. The Most High can bless us with a reprobate mind, right? And that's the scripture that I want to share right now. Now this is Romans 1 and 28, right? So why do I pick up, or why did I choose this verse, right? Well, along this walk you will meet certain, Pharisees or hypocrites, right? There is something that they don't understand about how others walk in this walk, right? Because most of them are unmerciful, right? They put something on other people's standards, and they will not use it on themselves, right? For example, the Sabbath, right? So the Sabbath is the seventh day, right? However, some brothers can keep the Sabbath day due to work, due to family, right? And most of the time it's out of their control, right? And some brothers will harass those brothers for not being able to keep the Sabbath laws, right? Because of circumstances, right? And that's when the Most High can bless them with a reprobate mind. And I will share a scripture that may prove that, right? Let's jump. So this is Romans 1 and 28. Let's start at 28, and I will show you, what I'm trying to point out. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to those things which are not convenient, right? So it's going to stress us out, right? Because with a mind that is reprobate, but first let's identify what is a reprobate mind. A reprobate mind is a mind that has become morally depraved, unprincipled, and unable to discern truth from falsehood. So it's like a PC or a computer, right? It can get corrupted, it can get distracted or lose its essence, right? It can become morally corrupt. So when we practice immoral things, the Lord can bless us with a reprobate mind, right? And what can determine stuff that will give us a reprobate mind? And we're gonna check that out right now. So next verse 29, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, right? Backbiters, haters of God. Let's jump to 31. There it is. Without understanding, covenant breakers without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful. Right? So along this walk, you will encounter Pharisees and hypocrites. Right? They will rebuke you for not being able to keep the Sabbath laws for now. They are what? Unmerciful, right? They don't have patience to other brothers, right? Even most of the time, they don't even have control to other brothers, right? They just want to mess with other brothers. They just want to rebuke and rebuke and rebuke, and that's it. Let's go back to verse 28. What will happen if we do that? And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. Right? So we must be careful on how we approach things, right? The best approach in this walk is to first start with yourself, right? First, building yourself, because how can you judge one another when you have something that you need to judge on with yourself, right? That's why it's very important to start with yourself and deal with yourself first before you start fixing other brothers, right? That's not to say that you will not fix other brothers, right? It's just that you have to start with yourself, right? Because we have to do this accordingly, right? If you don't do it accordingly, you might get a corrupted mind, right? The Lord can give you a corrupted mind, right? Now I want to point out this verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25, right? So some brothers who suddenly realizes the truth, they want to rebuke, and debate, and argue with one another, right? I know it's important to debate, but if it's getting too heated or unreasonable, it's better to stop, right? But yeah, it's better to point out this topic that I want to share. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate, right? In all things. What is temperance? Moderate or restrained. So conservative, right? You have to be wise, right? To be conservative is to be wise and use your wisdom wisely, right? Because if you don't use your wisdom wisely, you might get what? And now they do, let's continue to read it. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, right? But we an incorruptible, right? Is there anything else? Right. Therefore, so run, not as uncertainly, so fight, not as one that I beat in the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest or for fear that by any means when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. Right? So first start with yourself, right, and apply temperance or patience. Patience, or what you can keep or what you can do right now, that you may not abuse your mind, right? Your mind is like a machine or like a computer or a PC. When it runs something that it cannot hold, it gets corrupted, right? It gets affected by viruses, right? Remember that Satan can be I think I forgot the verse. Satan is the enemy where it can attack you anytime, right? And the spiritual warfare is battle with your mind, so you have to be sober or alert in this walk, right? That's why we have to be alert with ourselves first before we focus on other brothers, right? It's not wrong to rebuke, it's not wrong to fix others, but what we must do first is to first start with ourselves, right? Before we rebuke and fix others, right? And remember, to debate is to educate, right? And not to just endlessly prove what your point is, right? I think in the book of Thessalonians it says that to study in meekness or in business, right? Or have your business in meekness, something like that, right? Now, debate is not wrong, but yeah, when it gets heated, that's the point where it goes something weird, right? So yeah, I want to meditate on that because I want to always remind myself, the words of the Most High, that I may not get a corruptible mind, right? Because we run in order to get what? But we an incorruptible, right? So we have to get that incorruptible crown, right? That is the renewal of mind, right? Our minds is like the PC, right, or the computers, right? So we have to always keep it clean, keep it sober, keep it aware or alert against any kind of temptation, right? Because remember, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare thyself for temptation. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thyself for temptation, right? Uh, Failure to prepare is preparing to fail, right? So when you are not prepared with yourself, but you are prepared to rebuke one another brother, then that's something that you have to. Then that is something that is going to be difficult, right? Because we have to fix first our defense, because wisdom is a defense, right? And what is wisdom? That is keeping the law. So first keep the law and then help others, right? You can of course help others, but slowly and through small things, right? There's nothing wrong with helping, right? So with that, I greet to anyone who is listening, to anyone who is keeping the law, trying to keep the law, the Israelites out there, right, from the four corners of the earth. And yeah, just keep meditating every day, because we need the word and our daily bread, that we may always remind ourselves, because anytime we could lose the understanding, right? That's why I keep praying, keep repenting, and also fast, right? So all praise to the Most High, Yahweh.